nigga thought he killed me. All right, that's cool. We'll see. Strict top of the
All right,
crop
NBA
shit,
All-Star
crush
Weekend
motherfucker.
is over with. Typical NBA All-Star Weekend. I don't really care for the NBA All-Star Weekend, but it's a good break for them. You know, they get a couple days off, and then they get to prepare for like the last 25, 30 games of the season before the playoffs start. You know, we're post-trade deadline. We'll talk some of the trade deadlines. Really honestly surprised. I made some videos at the first of the year when NBA season started, and I'm gonna be honest with you, they're pretty accurate, pretty spot on. Not that the NBA is hard to predict. This is nothing like the NFL. The NFL is a challenge every single week. You never know what you're gonna see. The NBA, pretty cliche, pretty much you know what you're gonna get. Let's talk about the East first. In the East, let's talk about the Raptors. Now the Raptors, they have they're interesting to me because they're a team that I don't really get too excited about because I know once the playoffs come around, Lowry and DeRozan don't show up. That is a proven fact. They do not show up in the playoffs. It's been 3 to 4 years now where they don't show up. They play a shell. They play like a shell of what they were in the regular season. And the thing is the Raptors are a funny team to me because they have noticed that they have messed up in the past, and they have tried to improve their team every year. You know, at first it was Lowry and DeRozan, and those are just kind of like some young guys. You know, it was kind of your Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum type thing, where the two really good guys, but they really had nobody else on their team. And then Jonas Valanciunas has kind of came on over the last couple of years. I really like him as a big. And so last year, you know, same thing happened. They played like dog shit in the playoffs. But what they're doing now is like they're constantly improving their team. When you talk about now the bench that they've created, they have a really good bench, and including, you know, Fred VanVleet, DeLon Wright, and then some of the other guys that I like. What's his name? Pisak Siakam. I can't say his fucking name, but he's from New Mexico State a couple years ago. Real good player. And then Jacob Pertl is another guy. They have like a really strong like second unit, and that's something in the East. The East does not have strong benches, and the Raptors do. So the Raptors are constantly coming at you, and then they drafted this last year OG Anunoby, who's going to be an absolute stud. Whenever he gets coming back, he tore his ACL last year at Indiana. He is an absolute stud. It's going to take him a couple years, but this is a guy. Whenever you know NBA fans or I don't really think there is any NBA fans. I think that there's just casual NBA fans that they see a big highlight or they see that and then they jump on somebody or whatever. But OG Anunoby is going to be one of those guys that people are going to be flocking to in about 2 or 3 years. And he's a lockdown defender. He's going to be vital in the playoffs down the road. If the Raptors, to me, I thought that they would get rid of Lowry this last summer because they had to pay Lowry. Lowry was 31 years old. I thought this would be a prime opportunity for Lowry to go to like a shit team that was wanting to pay him. But for some reason they said, fuck it, we're going to pay him. And he's not a bad point guard or anything like that. It's just, how long are you going to keep going with Lowry and DeRozan? And, you know, the people up there in Canada, you know, maybe they're focused on some other things, you know, and I do know that they like to show up to that Maple Leaf Square in the playoffs. But, you know, maybe they just get excited about making the playoffs. That's the type of franchise the Raptors seem like. So, you know, they probably won't win again this year. They probably will get about as far as they always do, which is the Eastern Conference semifinals. They'll get matched up against the Cavs, and they'll probably lose that series. If they fall to like 3 or 4, that's a point where you're going to get matched up against the Bucks, and I do not want to play the Bucks. The Bucks that's the team that I talked about even at the first of the year, that they're going to be the next team because they have Giannis Antetokounmpo, you know, for all the motherfuckers that can't spell his name, and don't want to fucking even try to fucking realize how to spell it. And we call him the Greek Freak, if y'all want to call him that. But this kid is coming, and this kid, 22 years old, and he is going to shit on the league the next couple of years. So, jump on the bandwagon. If you're jumping on the bandwagon now, you're already fucking late. If you're jumping on the Nikolai Jokic bandwagon, you're already fucking late. But I'm sure there's a couple of spots on the back for you. So come on, jump on. You can at OG Anunoby. I'm gonna tell you about him now, so you can go ahead and jump on the bandwagon now, so I don't have to hear about you jumping on it 3 years from now. So the Raptors are looking good. They're going to be in the playoffs, but like I said, I think Eastern Conference semifinals is their ceiling. The glass ceiling is just only so high. And the thing is that the way that they're going to take the next step is when DeRozan and Lowry show up in the playoffs. If DeRozan and Lowry can go head to head with LeBron James, with the Wizards, John Wall, if they can go head to head with the Celtics, this is when this team can be talked about as one of those top teams in the East. But until then, they are just another one of those teams in the middle that are fighting. And you talk about too, DeRozan is a star, Lowry is a star. They have Ibaka, Valanciunas, but I just feel like they need one more guy. And I mean, that one guy may be OG Anunoby, but they just need one more guy to really complete this team. And that's just how I feel. And I think they need a big-time 3-guard, which OG Anunoby would be that guy. So hopefully, but at the same time, when OG Anunoby is going to be ready, by then Lowry could be gone, DeRozan could be gone by then, or they could be playing a shell of themselves of what they are now. So we'll see what happens with that. Norman Powell's another good player for them. But let's move on to the Celtics. Let's talk about the Celtics now. Celtics kind of came into the All-Star break a little bit cold. There for a while, they were one of the hottest teams in the league. Kyrie was playing really good, and he still is playing pretty good. And they are dealing with a couple of injuries. Marcus Smart's been out for a good amount of time. He's off and on. They just added Greg Monroe. Every time you add somebody new to a team that doesn't really need a guy, like I didn't think they needed Greg Monroe. I kind of thought that was dumb. And he's kind of a waste of space guy. I mean, when you talk about Greg Monroe, he's kind of soft. You already have a really soft guy in Al Horford. But just going forward, so no Gordon Hayward. That was something that we didn't know was going to happen at the first of the year. That shit was crazy. And I don't ever know if Gordon Hayward will ever play again. He probably will. I said the same thing with Paul George, and look what Paul George is doing now. He's a healthy guy. He'll get back. Levi Golding's going to get back in the league, and he's going to kill it when he gets back. So then Semi Ojeleye has been good. He doesn't score a whole lot of points, but he's a guy that I've seen been playing a lot. Abdel Nader was a guy that was a G League, D League guy last year. He was a top guy on this team, and he's on this team now. Those guys aren't averaging much points at all, but they're a part of this team. Good players. Aaron Baines has been a great piece coming over. I like Aaron Baines, and then Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier's been good. He's actually been better than you would think. Coming off the bench, a pretty good player. I just don't know how far this team. The thing is I see them getting matched up against the Wizards in the semi-conference finals. The semi-conference semifinals is what I should have said. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum have been good, and they have really came on faster than you would expect. Jason Tatum's looked really good fast. Jaylen Brown, he didn't really play a whole lot last year. They did kind of thrust him onto the scene in the playoffs, and he's done really good at times this year. The game against the Cavs the other day, he had a real bad game. But I'm not sold on their ability to rebound. Al Horford is a good rebounder, but I'm not sold on this team in the playoffs. I want to see what they look like in the playoffs. They play very good defense. They're gonna be a tough team to beat because of their defense. But is this team as good as it's being, sold as? And I don't think it is. I think it's not a bad team. They play in the East. They're gonna probably handle most of their opponents. But do you envision this team beating the Cavs? Do you envision this team beating the Wizards? I don't even know if I envision this team beating the Wizards. The only reason they might beat the Wizards is because their bench is so much stronger than the Wizards. The Wizards have one of the absolute worst benches in the league. And let's talk about the Wizards for a minute. Doing pretty good. They struggled to start the year a little bit, but we knew that they were gonna pick it up, that they were gonna get going. John Wall, he's out right now. He's gonna be out. The whole thing was not saying the whole thing was planned or like, oh, it was all bullshit. I'm just saying they did a great job of knowing, okay, he's gonna go in for this knee scope. 2 weeks before the All-Star game. Then he's going to have, then the All-Star game, all that shit's they're going to be off a week then. And then he'll be able to come back, about a month before the playoffs start. So I think it was an awesome idea of the Wizards. The Wizards might falter a little bit in the standings here and there. But I really think that this team is going to be scary. I love John Wall. Bradley Beal has really came on. He's the guy that I've been talking about for a couple of years. And, people are finally jumping on him. Otto Porter, it was so important that they paid him. I know he's not worth it. Everybody knows he's not worth it. But did you want him to leave and go to the Nets? Like, you would have had to fill that position. I mean, Kelly Oubre is a very good player. He comes off the bench. He's the anchor. He's the anchor of the second unit. And I want to see what this team, I feel like I'm saying this with all of them, but like, we'll see what happens with this team when the playoffs come around. Like, you can only get so excited about these teams in the East because it's like you're whooping up on all the other Eastern Conference teams that suck. And and the Wizards are a team that really don't even play good against the other teams that are like over 500. So I just want to see who. It's all about who gets matched up against who when the playoffs come around. But this is another one of those teams that's up there that I do like, that I do respect in the Eastern Conference. But their bench, like I've said 5 times now, is fucking garbage. Marcin Gortat is a very underrated big man. He gets 8 boards a game, 8 points. And those 8 points, he's not being asked. He's not calling for the ball. Those are all trash points. Marcin Gortat, all of it is trash points. So, and then they have Markieff Morris, who's averaging 10 a game, not a bad player. I see them being about the 4 seed. And they're probably going to get matched up against the Bucks in the first round. That's going to be a hell of a series. Talking about the Bucks, ever since they got rid of Kidd, they've been playing very well. Giannis does it all. He leads the team in assists, leads the team in rebounds, leads the team in points. They brought Eric Bledsoe in. Eric Bledsoe averaging 17 a game. And he's a really good player. He's on a really bad team. He's averaging 2.2 steals a game also. Chris Middleton had injury last year, and he was just coming back slowly. He's averaging 20 points a game this year. Very good player. I like Chris Middleton. He's a good defender as well. And then you talk about Malcolm Brogdon, last year's Rookie of the Year. He's a guy that's already 24 years old or so. He played all 4 years of college, so he is ready. This is he's at his final form. He's not, he's not building or anything like that like some of these other guys. Jabari Parker has came back. He's played 6 games. He's coming off the bench, averages just 9 points a game so far. I don't know what it is about this team. At the first year when they were struggling, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, this was kind of like my team that I'm kind of pushing for the East. Like, I look at Giannis, he's going to snatch the fucking crown from LeBron eventually. And, I was hoping that he would have, he's awesome. He's second in the league in points and stuff like that. But I just thought that they would be a little bit higher in the standings at this point, or that they would have a little bit of a better record than 32-25 coming out of the All-Star break. So I'm a little bit hesitant on what I've seen. And then the fact that, the playoffs that they played last year, it was a tough matchup against the Raptors, and they had, I think it went to 6 or 7. And I thought that Milwaukee was going to win last year, but they, because I don't fuck with the Raptors in the playoffs. But I'm really excited to see what happens with the Bucks this year. They're by far my favorite. They're by far my favorite team in the East. So I'm excited to see what happens with the Bucks. We'll see going forward. Let's talk about the Cavs. I don't want to forget about the Cavs. Now I knew that LeBron looked like he was playing, not really trying, and after the All-Star, or not after Christmas, I think their record was like 9-8 and 16 or something like that. It was 6-13 or something. It was something like that. 6-13. Basically, they lost twice as many games as they won after Christmas. So, let's say at first, it was also, okay, Kevin Love went out. That didn't help. That happened at the back half of that. But Kevin Love going out, that's never fun to have to figure out where you're going to get all those points, the 18 points a game from him, the 9.4 rebounds that he gets. Kevin Love, it's like, let's blame Kevin Love for everything when he has done absolutely nothing wrong. The one thing we can say about Kevin Love, he's soft as hell in the finals. He's soft as hell in the playoffs. But, I mean, I don't know. I fuck with Kevin Love in the regular season. Let's say that. And so when he went out, that was tough. But just that whole time period was just, I just saw the moves coming. I didn't know who was going to go where. I'm going to be honest with you, I thought DeAndre Jordan was going to be coming in. I thought that the Clippers were going to dismantle their team. I thought Jerry West might be able to get that Brooklyn pick from the Cavs, but the Cavs are not going to give that pick up, and that shows you that LeBron's probably on his way out after this year. So this is what I want to say, though. You have to understand, how is LeBron going to get out of Cleveland? He's not going to win another ring and then leave. So I think we can kind of push that out the window that the Cavs are going to win Cavs are going to win anything this year. So we can go ahead and say Cavs are not going to win this year, because how would LeBron, initiate his exit if they won? So going forward, I hate the Cavs. I have never liked the Cavs. I cannot stand, at the first year I bashed them for having this old ass team. It's just a bunch of fucking names. Like, if you don't know anything about the NBA, you would think that the Cavs were one of the top teams because of all the names. You would have been like, well, they have Dwayne Wade, they have Isaiah Thomas, they have Derrick Rose, when you think about their team, like, they have every fucking old man in the league. They had fucking Derrick Rose, who, okay, I know Derrick Rose is only like 29, but with his bionic knees, we can go ahead and put like 35 on him. And the way he fucking has injuries all the damn time. Channing Frye is one of those guys that it's like, he doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but he makes a lot of threes. So it's like, Channing Frye is a very, very, a very good player, and he shoots a high percentage of three. But at the same time, it's like, when did fucking Channing Frye ever get to play? Like, he's so ass on the fucking defensive rebounding that there's no he doesn't get any offensive boards, but just defensively, he doesn't get no fucking board. So it's just like, this guy is a waste of fucking space. They got rid of Sumter. I love Sumter, but he's a guy that he's just like, I'm part of the league. Like, he's just happy to be part of the league type guy. Like, he doesn't ever want to, like, and maybe when he goes out to the Kings, he might get a little bit more playing time, but I don't really, he's just a guy that he's just falling into, like, he's just another guy in the league. Like, and then Dwayne Wade is a shell of himself. I'm glad that they went ahead and shipped him back to Miami. Isaiah Thomas, I have never liked Isaiah Thomas. If you watch any of my videos from last year, I said this man will not get paid this summer. There's no way you can give this guy a max deal, and expect him to be your guy in the future. He's like 6 feet tall. Like, it doesn't work in the NBA. Like, it's so hard to get your shot off, and I'm not a big fan of him. But I understand that he's a good player. He's dealt with a lot of adversity throughout his career, so I totally get that. But I just don't. I'm not a big advocate on him. So they kept Jeff Green, one of the good older guys. Kyle Korver. Kyle Korver is a shell of what he was. I'm surprised he didn't get X'd. The one guy that I'm really upset that they got rid of was Jay Crowder. And Jay Crowder, he doesn't really play that well with this team. I don't really think he fucks with LeBron that much. I think he kind of realized LeBron's kind of a diva. But they kept JR, and JR's been doing good. JR can just sit outside at the 3-point line and just hit threes all day. That's JR for you. Let's talk about George Hill. George Hill has been very good since he came in the league. He took Indiana to 2. I can't say he took Indiana, but he was the point guard on those Indiana teams that went toe to toe with the Cavs. So he's a guy that I know he's not going to score a whole lot. He's not going to really do a whole lot, look like a whole lot, but like, he's going to manage the team. He's going to play point guard and stuff like that. And Jordan Clarkson's been really good, and I think Jordan Clarkson will cool off a little bit, but because I think he's going to start getting some attention for the way he's been playing over the first couple games. But like I said, I have always hated the Cavs. I cannot stand the Cavs, and I like the Cavs now. Like, I'm pulling for the Cavs to go all the way because, I like Jordan Clarkson. I like Larry Nance. Those are two of my guys. I'm a Lakers guy, so those are some of my dudes. And Rodney Hood is the other guy that's really good too. Well, he's done good so far. I don't want to say he's really good yet, but I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to sit out, shoot three-pointers, and he's going to be a good part of this. He's going to be a key part of this team. And this is the thing. LeBron James was not trying. LeBron James was not trying after Christmas. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, but he started trying again right after the All-Star break or right after the trade deadline. They'll get Kevin Love back eventually. And so this is a team, we don't really know what they're going to look like until the playoffs come around and when Kevin Love comes back. But I think, every year LeBron toys around and LeBron he doesn't show his full potential, and then the playoffs come around and the beast is unleashed. So I'm expecting that to happen again. I'm excited to see what happens in the East this year. These East teams are definitely on the way up, coming up. And then let's just talk briefly about kind of the back half of the standings here. The Indiana Pacers are a big surprise. They've looked really good thus far. Oladipo's kind of taken over as he's the new star there. Big Sabonis, my boy from Gonzaga. I was really high on this guy coming out of college, and I'm really impressed with him, man. I was really impressed with his post-up game at Gonzaga. It was advanced at that point in his career. You got to understand, his dad played in the league, and his dad was one of the scariest guys. But he came into the league late. He came into the league way after his prime, and he still was a pretty good player at that. So I think Sabonis is going to be one of the great players in the league, and he did play at Gonzaga, but he's honestly a foreigner. He's a foreigner guy. So, you know how I fuck with my foreigners. And then Thaddeus Young, just a vet, a guy that's played on so many different playoff teams. The Sixers teams back a couple years ago when the Pacers were making the playoffs, I think. He's played on the Nets. The Nets was a team that I think made the playoffs a couple of times when he was on them. So he's just a vet. He's a guy that's a glue guy. I'm a big Thaddeus Young guy because he's a guy that he doesn't really get a whole lot of publicity, but he's a very good player. Lance Stevenson is just being Lance. He is in full form right now. I'm loving Lance this year. He's a big entertaining guy. TJ Leaf hasn't really got to play a whole lot, but he's the guy that they draft. He was the guy that got drafted first overall. Like I said, Victor Oladipo is the star, averaging 24.4 points a game. He's doing good on with assists. He's doing good on rebounds, and he's also averaging over 2 steals a game. Bojan Bogdanovic. There's 2 guys in the league that have the exact same name, and I get them fucking confused. And they've switched teams a couple of different times. But this guy's, I think he's the taller one, and he's a better 3-point shooter. And he's the second leading scorer on this team. And then Miles Turner, a boy from Texas, that's my boy, averaging 2 blocks a game and 13 points, 6 rebounds. I would expect his rebounds to go up a little bit, but they do have Sabonis. Sabonis is averaging the 8.2 rebounds. And Darren Collison's just a guy that gets no love. And he's a good player. He played for the Kings for a couple years and was kind of the guy for them. And I think he's out right now with some type of knee something, but he's leading the team in assist with 5.3? Okay. So this Pacers team, they've proven that they can compete, that they'll probably be in the playoffs. They're playing really good as a team. And I'm excited to see what happens with them. We'll see how high their ceiling can be going forward. Other teams. So so as I like the Bucks a lot, my other team that I like a lot is the Sixers. How can you not like the Sixers? I mean, they have tanked for so many years, and they're finally at the point where they're going to be able to fucking compete. Embiid doesn't even play every game. You know, he doesn't play back-to-backs, and this dude is a beast. He's got some of the best footwork of big men. He's bringing the fun back to the NBA. He's always having antics and stuff like that. And then Ben Simmons. This is Ben Simmons' first year. Remember that. This is his first year. He came into the league last year, but this is his first year in the league, averaging 16 points a game, 7.8 rebounds, 7.3 assists. That's LeBron James type numbers. Like that, we're getting ready for some LeBron James type numbers from Ben Simmons. This kid is a beast. If anybody ever slept on Ben Simmons, you're a fucking idiot. Like I've been saying since this kid played in college that he's gonna fucking wreck the league when he comes in. Embiid averaging 23.4 or 23.7 points a game and 11 rebounds. 1.8 blocks. Ben Simmons got the 1.9 steals. These guys are basically rookies. Dario Saric, another really good player. He's a guy that he's not even the main focus of the team, and he still gets 14.7 points a game. Robert Covington is like, I feel like he's the guy that I swear, out of all these guys on this team, he's played on this team the longest. And I feel like I just have a lot of respect for him because he never left. He stayed. At the same time, I feel like Robert Covington is a guy that if he wasn't playing for the Sixers, if he would have been on some other team, he probably would have just got bumped to the D League and would probably be still fighting for a spot in like the D League. And then let's talk about Markelle Fultz for a minute. The kid's a bust. He's going to be a bust. I'm sorry. I know it's only 1 year, but I think what happened was they tried to change his shot. When they changed his shot, he hurt his shoulder. And then I think now they're at a point where I think him and his agent are kind of like, fuck this. Like, I want to shoot my own way. Like, y'all fucked my shoulder up. But at the same time, like, I think he realizes is like, man, I do need to fix my shot, or like, is my shot an issue? Like, I'm not a very good shooter. And in the past, to me, it's not one of those things like it's been a big deal to not be able to be a shooter when you come into the draft, but things are changing. People like Jason Tatum are already good shooters. What's his name? Josh Jackson is already a pretty good shooter. There's a lot of guys that are coming into the league, and that's something I just noticed with college basketball in general. Everybody has become better shooters. Ever since Steph Curry came along, everybody is focused on shooting a lot more. And then JJ Redick, a veteran guy, he got in trouble the other day saying I think he said chink or something like that when he was talking to some Chinese fans or something like that. Fucking hilarious. He looks guilty as hell. But he's averaging 16.7 points a game. He can sit out, shoot the three. And the thing was, I really have a lot of respect for JJ Redick because he's one of the first guys that came over to this team. Amir Johnson is another guy that came over and said, I'm gonna take a chance on these guys, and in a couple years when the Sixers are competing for a ring, when them and the fucking Bucks are battling it out in like 3 or 4 years, I wouldn't be surprised if JJ Redick's still on this damn team, just kind of sitting, coasting on the bench, like about to get him a fucking ring. But that's down the road. Let's talk about the Heat. I need to give an apology to Eric Spoelstra. I used to give this man so much shit because he's a guy that I just had no respect for. I was like, you have Wade, you have Bosh, you have fucking LeBron James. Like, you're a shitty-ass coach, but you're in the finals every year. And he's a guy that started off as a video coordinator. Got a lot of respect for him because of that now. I mean, I knew that the whole time, but like just the way he's came up, he's a Pat Riley guy. Pat Riley loves him. And the team they have, Deion Waiters is out. I think Deion Waiters is out for the rest of the year. He's kind of came on as a really good player, but Hassan Whiteside is the star, 14 points a game, 11 rebounds. Goran Dragic, who was an all-star this year. Goran Dragic is a guy that when he was playing for the Suns, I really started to jump on and I really liked. And when he got traded over to Miami last year, wasn't really that sold on how he would be impactful for this team. But he's a very good player. He's averaging 4.7 assists, four rebounds a game, and he's leading the team in points with 17.4. So I like Gordon Dragic. I call him the Dragon. I mean, he's a guy that he's made his way up through the league. He played for a shitty Rockets team. Him and Lowry were on the shitty Rockets team. Lowry went to, I think, Memphis or maybe to the Raptors. I don't really remember what Lowry's route was. These fucking players switch teams like it's a fucking they getting a fucking new fucking girlfriend. And Josh Richardson, Tyler Johnson, two guys that I don't think were like the top draft pick type guys, and they have really improved themselves. They have really made themselves very good players. I know Josh Richardson was a guy that didn't I don't think he even got drafted. He was a guy that I really liked coming out of Tennessee, and he's done good. I think he came up through the G League, and he's the fourth leading scorer on this team, averaging 13.2 points a game. Tyler Johnson, a little white boy, he's averaging 11.5. And then Wayne Ellington, a good three-point shooter. They brought in Kelly Olynyk. James Johnson is another guy that was on this team beforehand. He's a guy that does a lot of things well: points, rebounds, assists. And then Kelly Olynyk kind of comes off the bench and helps out the team. And then Bam Adebayo, definitely not getting, he's just a rookie, so he's not really getting that time. And a guy that I'm kind of disappointed in that I need to see more of is Justice Winslow. He's been hurt every single year, and he was a guy that was really scary at Duke. And I think because it's been so much time that it's easy to forget how dominant he was and how impactful you thought he could be at the NBA level, not just on offense but on defense. So I want to see what happens with him and going forward. Let's talk about this 8 seed. Basically, there's 9 teams in the East that have a chance. When you talk, the last team that we're going to talk about over here is the Pistons. Now, Pistons made a big trade. They went after Big Blake. And I don't think Blake's too happy about this. I wouldn't want to fucking play in Detroit, that fucking shithole. But I thought it was very convenient that they gave him another big-time rebounder. Andre Drummond leads the league in rebounds. Before he had, what's his name? He had DeAndre Jordan, who's a top rebounder. Reggie Jackson's out. I really like Reggie Jackson. He averages 5.5 assists a game, but he's out right now. When he gets back, I think this is when we can maybe try to take this team a little bit more serious. But I don't know. I know they're only like a couple games back at the East 8 spot. But when you look at these teams, I think that they're probably not. I don't think that they're the best team. Or I don't think that they're one of the top 8 teams. I think they are that 9th team. But we will see what going forward. Blake Griffin's been good. We're at a point where Blake Griffin can kind of do what he wants on the offense, and this is exactly what he wanted. This is, he doesn't want to play team basketball. He wants to showcase himself. He wants to go out there and show out. Ish Smith coming off the bench, a good backup point guard, but I guess he starts now because Reggie Jackson out. He's a good player. Stanley Johnson had a hell of a game against the Cavs a couple weeks ago, but he's a guy that was the top 10 pick that has just not really panned out. We'll see what happens with him going forward. And he's a lanky, tall kid that he's just – I'm sorry to say, but he's just a waste of space at this point. Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard's been good. He's a rookie. I don't know how high Luke Kennard's ceiling can be, though, because he's – white boy. He's got a nice runner. I love his runner, but I don't know if he can get in the lane. And he's really not that tall. I mean, 6'3" or so, but I'm not that sold on Luke Kennard yet. But he was a top, I think 15 pick in this draft, and he's not had a bad year per se. But we'll see what happens with Luke Kennard going forward. I just don't know if he'll ever get any when's he going to get this playing time with this team? I know they got rid of Avery Bradley and Tobias Harris, so that should open up a little bit. But we'll see going forward with him. And just to kind of touch on these bad teams in the East, the Hornets have been playing better as of lately, but their record on the road is ass. The Pistons' road on the record's ass too, but the Pistons are 9-17, the Hornets are 9-18 on the road, and that's kind of the difference when you look at these teams. The difference between the playoff teams and the teams that aren't in the playoffs is how they play on the road. And the Hornets, they brought in Dwight Howard, good player, but I don't think Kemba Walker. I just don't see them. I don't know. I just don't see them doing anything. I don't see them turning the season around. I think they're too many games back at this point. The Knicks, they lost Big Zing. I'm not gonna fucking call him the unicorn. That shit's fucking corny. I like Big Zing. Cantor has had a couple 2020 games this year. He's looking awesome. Enes Kanter's a guy that gets a lot of slack, a lot of hate, but I like Enes Kanter a lot. And then they have Michael Beasley. Michael Beasley has been good for them this year as well. And the rookie, little Frenchie Frank, I ain't going to butcher his last name because I butcher last names like a motherfucker. But I have not necessarily been too impressed with him yet. Now, I know he's a foreigner and it takes the foreigners a couple years to get used to it or whatever, but I don't know about him. You know, and they brought in Emmanuel Mudiay. They got Trey Burke, Jared Jack. We'll see what happens with this team. Courtney Lee, I want to give a shout out to Courtney Lee. He's a guy that just keeps on playing, battling every year. He's on a shit team every year, and he just keeps battling, averaging 13 points a game. Tim Hardaway got paid big time over this last summer, and he's at this point with Zingas out, he's their leading scorer at 16.7 points a game. That should go up. You know, Porzingis is averaging 22 points a game, and he's averaging 6 assists. I'm sure Cantor's rebounds is going to go up. He's averaging 10.7 rebounds a game with his 14.4 points that he's got going. And then, you know, the Hawks are ass. Dennis Schroeder's my boy. I love Dennis Schroeder. John Collins, he's 5th in the league in shooting percentage. Right now, he's going to be a stud. He was a top 10 pick, I'm pretty sure, or at least top 15, whatever pick the Hawks had last year. I love me some Taurean Prince out of Baylor. He's going to be a real good player. And then, you know, Kent Bazemore, he was the guy that played for the Warriors back in the day. Got a lot of respect for him. There's another guy on this list that I love, DeAndre Bembry. DeAndre Bembry has not really panned out that well. And he hadn't played a whole lot either. But he's a guy that at St. Joe's, that was my boy. I really fucked with him when he played there. But yeah, we'll see about these Hawks going forward. They're going to get a top pick, most likely. That'll be fucking good for them. Magic are a fucking shit show every year. They're one of the worst drafting teams of all time. They have had a top 10 pick probably the last, I'd say, 7 years. Aaron Gordon's been good. Aaron Gordon was a good pick. Evan Fournier, I don't know how they pulled him, but I think he was like a second-round pick or a late first-round pick. He was not. He was one of those foreigners that you thought were just going to fucking end up like all the other foreigners. Nikolai Vujicic out of USC, probably their best player, most consistent player, averaging 9 rebounds, 17 points. Gordon's got the 18 points, 8 rebounds. Both those guys are good. So their front court, I think is what – I might have just said that wrong. No, their front court is good, you know. And you talk about Jonathan Simmons, another pretty good player. They just got rid of Elfrid Payton. I think it was time. He's never really panned out. He was a top 10 pick, I'm pretty sure, and he just hadn't panned out. Mario Hertz-Nagonia, he's another one of those foreigners that just, to me, I'd give him a couple years because he's only 22, but he does not look like he's got it. He looks shell-shocked by the NBA speed. But I think that they did do a good job in this last draft. Jonathan Isaac is an absolute stud. I call him the specimen because if you just see this kid, you're like, what the fuck? Like, he looks like he's straight out of fucking laboratory. He's a guy I think is going to be really good. Terrence Ross has been hurt for a while, I think, but Terrence Ross is another good player. It's just this team that just hasn't put it all together. They need to get that guy this year in the draft. And I think Jonathan Isaac and I think whoever they draft in the draft this year, they're probably going to be going after a point guard because they don't have a point guard. That's what I would think that they should go after, or they need to get one in free agency. But the Magic is a team that's just so disappointing because, like, every year you're like, that's a pretty good draft pick. That's a pretty good draft pick. And then it just doesn't pan out or their team just doesn't show up. I mean, it's almost like they're just meant to be fucking bad. They're getting punished for fucking beating LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals in like 2009 or whatever. But I will say they did draft Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard was straight out of high school. That was a risky pick. And so I understand how they've kind of had this philosophy, oh, fuck it, we'll go after this guy. This is our guy, you know, because Dwight Howard really panned out as a real top pick, and they got rid of Dwight Howard at a perfect time, you know, right when he started to slow down. The Bulls to me are just they've had injuries. Their front office is the most trash front office. I think John Paxson is the guy in the front office. he is the biggest fucking shrill in the world. Godly, he probably fucking owns a Starbucks up there in fucking Chicago. Because my thing is about this, like this team, like okay, they do a great job. Like I'm gonna be honest, Jimmy Butler, I think is an issue. I think he has fucking I think he has character problems, or he's just a little fucker. But I think it was good to get rid of him. You're just gonna have to pay him, and then like you can't really build around him because to me, Jimmy Butler's not good enough to be like the star, but like he believes that he's good enough to be the star. In reality, if you put Jimmy Butler on like a team with like LeBron, they probably couldn't be beat because Butler's going to play like 40 minutes of the game. He's going to score a good amount with LeBron. He's going to play defense. Like he's a damn good player. I would not have him as my one star on the team, and I think the Bulls realized that. And I was really upset because Jimmy Butler was my boy. He was a guy that kind of came up and was playing. He was kind of a guy that was just he was just a piece of the puzzle when you talk about when they had Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, back in that, that bullshit. And he kind of came up, man. He was just like, he just built and built and built out of Marquette. I don't even know when he was drafted. I don't think it was very high though. But they got rid of him for I will say they did a fucking good job with fucking getting Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn is a guy that was like a top guy in college a couple years ago. Very scary. I think he's going to be a very good player. He's already doing pretty good this year. I think it's only his second or third year in the league. 13.5 points a game, 4.6 assists or 4.6 rebounds, 6.3 assists. Lauri Markkanen, the fucking brand name, baby. It just sounds like a fucking brand name, Lauri Markkanen. 15 points a game, 7 rebounds. I like him a lot. Good three-point shooter. He's great in the pick and roll. That's how he was really good at Arizona. Bobby Portis, he'll beat your fucking teammates up. Watch out for him. He's another good player. He kind of lacks playing time, though. He averages 12 points a game, 6 rebounds, and he only gets 21 minutes a game. Zach LaVine is poster boy. For me, I love Zach LaVine. He does a lot of things well. He's just coming off the injury. I think next year this team, I don't think this team's going to be great or nothing next year, but this team could be a team that starts competing next year. And then they got rid of Nikolai Mirotic. And Mitrovic, I love Nikolai Mitrovic, and nobody knows about Nikolai Mitrovic. He was averaging 16.8 points a game, and 6.4 rebounds. They just traded him to the Pelicans to help them out. So, we'll see what happens going forward with the Bulls. They're going to get a top draft pick. Hopefully they go after Young Bull. Nets are the laughing stock of the NBA to me. Just because the Nets, man, these Nets, man, like, and they're doing a better job of drafting, but I mean, they basically picked up everybody's trash. Like, they picked up Jahlil Okafor, and they picked up D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell's not that bad of a player, per se, but he's never going to win shit. He's just not a winner. They boosted him way too much in college. He was good, but he was never, like, what they made him out to be when he was at Ohio State. Jeremy Lin's been out all year. That sucks. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson is kind of coming up. He's a guy that's been playing good for a while. DeMarre Carroll's a guy I have so much respect for. He's a guy that was like undrafted out of Missouri. I loved him at Missouri. I thought he was going to be a really good player. He's one of those guys that kind of convinced me to kind of start like saying how I feel about certain players, because I was like, I saw DeMarre Carroll when he was at Missouri, and I was like, this guy has to be in the NBA. And I just, like, 2 or 3 years went by. He had to play in the GD league type shit, and then like now he's like one of the guys in the NBA, and he's played on some good playoff teams in the past. And now he's on a shit team, but he's a guy like Allen Crabbe. Allen Crabbe is taken care of. The fucking Blazers paid him couple years ago. Fucking Nets picked up his contract, and he's an all right player. He was good at Cal, but I mean, he is not worth all the money that he got last year, and he's averaging 12.5 points a game. Chris LeVert, another good player. He's a young player, pretty good shooter. And then Jared Allen is a guy that they got from Texas. I really like Jared Allen, and he's just years away. Isaiah Whitehead, I like me some Isaiah Whitehead. He hadn't played a whole lot this year. My other guy that I like, Spencer Dinwiddie. I've been talking about Spencer Dinwiddie for a while. He's the leader on the assist. He won the skills challenge in the All-Star weekend last weekend. And then he's averaging 13.6 points a game. This is not like a terrible team per se. It's a bunch of like role players. They don't have a star. They don't have a stud. And like the role players are they're just averaging a lot more games. Like they're playing good as a team. They have what, 6? They have 9 people averaging over 10 points a game. That's ridiculous, you know. Jeremy Lin played one game and he averaged 18 points. So okay, that didn't really count. They have 7 guys, 7 guys that average over 10 points a game. That's not bad. Joe Harris is one of those guys from Virginia that was just really good. I got a lot of respect for him that he's still, you know, fighting in the league. This shit is way too long.
Bitch, I feel like Monte. Smoke Golden State, oh. Bitch, I feel like Monte.